You're listening to the Name Drop podcast, where we reveal the industry experts and brilliant founders behind the marketing campaigns and brands you know and love. In a world where things change fast and marketing is the opposite of static, we are here to reveal the marketing geniuses and how they find their inspiration, hoping to inspire you along the way. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Name Drop podcast. Really excited for you guys to hear from our guest today as we talk about her entrepreneurial journey, growth marketing tactics that work and those that do not in today's crazy ecosystem, and the importance of advisors. We all need them. So I hope you guys enjoy the episode. Hello.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Oh my gosh, thanks for being here today.
Of course.
How are you feeling today? How's your day going?
Good. Things are going well. It's a Tuesday that feels like a Monday. So short week's nice, but you also kind of need those first few days of the week to get moving. So trying to be efficient.
100%. Did you have a long weekend?
I did. I had a nice, very relaxed weekend. I had kind of a crazy start to the year. So it's nice to have a little bit of a quiet weekend.
Awesome. Cool. Well, without revealing yourself to us, tell me about what types of challenges, opportunities, what are you thinking about professionally these days?
Yeah, I think our main focus right now is how to scale the business. We have had some things happen that have allowed us to propel in a really exciting, but in many ways lucky ways, some certain press placements and PR opportunities that I think really catapulted some of our products to a viral nature. But I think it's figuring out how to capitalize on that, take a business from a few million in sales to, eight-figure, mid-eight-figure is a whole different way of running a business. And so it's been a really, really interesting process of trying to understand, what are the growth levers that you can lean on in a really tricky growth environment.
Yeah, I'm sure. Have you tried anything that has been a total flop?
We've definitely tried things that have been flops. I think that sometimes like one-off bright and shiny opportunities, perhaps like an expensive influencer or like an activation of sorts, I think that can seem really exciting and maybe had more significant lift a few years ago. Mm-hmm. But I think we live in such a content-heavy economy that you really need to be reaching people time and time and time again before a purchase happens. So these sort of one-off opportunities I don't think are necessarily worth investing in at times. But that said, I do think, you have to test it to know if that's the case.
Yeah. No, that's so true. As marketing continues to progress, it feels like it's less about that one hit wonder that works, right? And that's what it all used to be based on. And now It's like multiple messages over and over again, frequency as much as possible.
Exactly.
Which is a ton of work for a team, though.
It is so much work. And I think it's figuring out, where are people making their purchase decisions? Because it has changed, right? Like maybe once upon a time, you just found your favorite influencer talking about something and that was enough. Mm-hmm. Now it needs to be like the big hot thing to see like real volume out of a marketing investment.
No, I think that's true because I agree with you. Everything is so many people now are supporting different types of products that if you just see that one post or that one sort of credibility check mark, it's like, okay, well, cool. Now I know what that is, but I'm still not convinced.
Exactly. Yeah. It's on your radar, but you're going to need to be reminded of it a few more times before the purchase happens.
Totally. So brag about yourself a little bit. What are you proud of?
I am really proud of our team. We are a small but mighty 3-person all-female team. We really were 2 people until October, and we have built an 8-figure business that's reached profitability in less than 3 years.
That's amazing.
So some really, really exciting traction. Some things we've done right, definitely a lot of mistakes along the way. But overall, I think it's a pretty cool story in what has been a trickier growth economy.
Yeah, no, the past few years, the economy at large has been so wild that building a business within that period, I'm sure there was a lot of unpredictability.
It really has, and it's crazy how quickly the D2C landscape has changed, even from a fundraising perspective, what investors prioritize out of a business, top line growth versus profitability and sustainability of a business. So in some ways, I think we've been on the right side of history because we sort of knew that the economy was changing, whereas I think some businesses that were built in, the first D2C boom are now having a hard time raising later stages and adjusting to this new environment.
So are you seeing now that investors are prioritizing profit and sustainable growth over just fast top-line growth?
Without a doubt. I think unless there is profitability or a route towards profitability, it's very hard to close money right now. I still think growth is certainly prioritized and there is an expectation of growth, but it's not the type of thinking where if you close money and grow at all costs, at some point a strategic will acquire you and move you towards profitability. I think the expectation is you've reached profitability before an acquisition is even an option.
I think it's exciting.
It is exciting, and it does make you build a healthy business. It
does.
And it's really cool figuring that out.
Yeah. I mean, it's just a different mindset, right? And the decisions that you make are going to be different if those are the goals, if that's the goal in mind.
Exactly.
I think like having a services business, having profit from the beginning was always the goal, even when it was just like me and one other person. And it was interesting though, because even 5 years ago, that wasn't what was like sexy from a business startup perspective. It was like, oh, you don't have investors and you're not fundraising and you're not prioritizing growth at all costs.
Right.
So it's been really kind of interesting to see the pendulum swing a little bit.
Yeah.
Even from like giant tech companies are starting to prioritize sustainability more.
It really is so interesting.
Which is kind of fascinating.
And I envy the service businesses that thought about it from day one, because it really, that is what a business is.
Yeah.
And so I think as tricky as it is, it's helpful for sort of all sectors to refocus, or at least have a moment in time where they're really focusing on that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think so often too, in the case that you mentioned before, when you're banking on a potential acquisition to happen that then helps you transition into profitability, sometimes that doesn't happen that way. And then the founder and the team ends up getting kind of screwed on all their hard work too.
100%. And I think like if your core unit economics don't work from day one, you're constantly going to be running this uphill battle. And so even if you're not profitable from day one, we certainly weren't. I think understanding like what are like the marginal components of our spend that could get us to a point of profitability and work towards that is really helpful.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, exciting.
I
like it. I like the
Very
change.
Exciting.
So back to marketing tactics and which things are helping to drive growth today. What types of things are you seeing working, whether it be for your business or for your competitors? Like what things are popping right now?
So for better or for worse, we are still very heavily invested in meta advertising. It's not the sexiest answer, but unfortunately, it really is what has allowed us to grow so quickly. We have a product that is fairly demonstrative, one that you're sort of watching work. And with that in mind, video UGC content has really been super high converting for us, and we've had a fairly affordable customer acquisition cost from the beginning. So that really has been huge for us. But that said, I think like the greatest conversation happening right now in the D2C world is how do you counteract rising customer acquisition costs, largely led by Meta. And I think one thing that's really exciting is this product seeding focus, where you're sending out quite a bit of product, not to huge, crazy influencers, but to micro influencers, nano influencers, with this mindset that people influence people. And I'm taking that sentence from another founder that I just listened to, so that's not an original idea, but how do you reach people 10 times and do so in a really organic way where it's genuinely their friends and their coworkers that are talking about a product? And therefore, if you can acquire customers through a bunch of product seeding and having people organically post about your product, your customer acquisition cost largely becomes the cost of your product to send out. And so that really has been moving the needle for us. There's some companies that have really pioneered that approach and seen incredible success with it. And we're still kind of on the early stages of like really rolling it out at scale. But it certainly has been sort of adding at the very least to our successful meta campaigns.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think it's taking it back to product sampling,
yes,
right?
That's it.
I think of Liquid IV a lot, and they do such an amazing job with their sampling.
Yeah.
They place and seed product in ski resorts and gyms, and there's just a few packets. It's nothing crazy, but to your point, someone has one and then they talk about it and they spread the message, and it's something that I think we take for granted, or we don't think that is going to drive that much impact, but people take recommendations from their peers.
Absolutely.
And that is the biggest source of decision to buy, I think, in many cases.
Exactly. I remember I was at a Hamptons brunch and they were passing out athletic greens. Mm-hmm. And I was it literally rejuvenated me. And I'm I'm going to need a pack of that,
Okay, going to buy.
Exactly. Yeah. Sold. So it does make sense.
So how do you track the impact of your product seeding?
It's very hard. Attribution is always the black box with marketing spend. We do quite a bit of post-purchase surveys, trying to understand how did you hear about us, ask the customer that has purchased where they made their purchase decision. But I think more than anything, we're just measuring what type of content is coming in. Really content is king for us, repurposing in both the paid and organic capacity. So as much as there are a lot of databases that I think can help you with it, we are sort of under the impression that nothing beats manual labor. And so we as a small but mighty team are just constantly reaching out to different people to send them product, encourage them to create content, share that content back with us. So the easiest sort of deliverable is how much content to be collected in a month.
Okay. So when you send them product, you ask them to post about it, share with their friends. Okay.
The expectation is sort of we love your page. We love the content you're creating.
Yeah.
We would love to send you a product if you could share your experience.
Amazing.
And typically that seems to result in something.
That's awesome. That's awesome. It's grassroots. I mean, you guys are hustling for sure.
We're definitely trying. Yeah. So that has been helpful.
That's really cool. And what do you think is not worth doing today?
I think it's very brand specific. And so there is so much worth testing because there's some things that really haven't worked for us. And yet I hear other founders oohing and ahhing over it. I think just back to the basics for people wanting to start a brand. I think something that I've heard and sort of seen is it's not enough to just take something that exists and put it on the internet and really market the hell out of it anymore. I think that totally did work for a while. Everything moved online.
For sure.
But now I think there really is something to be said for true product innovation and really thinking through what am I offering that's super different than what is already available?
Yeah.
It's not to say that the former won't work. It's just I think you're going to be at such an advantage of cutting through the noise if you're really talking about something new and innovative within your marketing dollars. So I would just say try to avoid the blanding approach, I think it's called, which is just putting a brand on something that already exists.
I like that. Yeah, I mean, you have to be clear and concise to the customer about why they should buy your thing over the many other options that they have.
Exactly.
And if it's not straightforward, the customer's not going to get it.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The same vitamin isn't just going to work online. It has to be something that's really unique.
Yeah. No, we have to remind ourselves that a lot, that the CTA needs to be clear and you have to stop people amidst them looking at pictures of their friends' kids and puppies and other things that are more interesting to them to really cut through the noise, because otherwise how easy is it to just keep scrolling? I mean,
it is. And it's so interesting what you learn about human psychology, isn't it?
Oh yeah, it's fascinating.
What color CTAs stop people in their tracks. And I would have never, I think I'm just a dumb consumer. I am not that, I don't see those things when we have experts helping us optimize. So it's so fascinating, what stops people in their tracks.
100%. I worked at Ben & Jerry's for a few years, and
so cool.
We would do graphic testing of, to your point, if we make the background on this blue versus red, and will someone be more likely to sign a petition for climate justice? And
so
those little tiny tweaks make a huge difference.
It
which
really does.
It is fascinating. It's you don't think it's going to be that specific, but it is at the end of the day. It's wild once you get into it.
And it requires testing, to your point, which can be tiresome, but but so cool when you get the results back and start to see trends form from certain marketing tests.
Agree. So what relationship has been most impactful on you as you look at your career to date?
So I have been really big on seeking out advisors along the way. And I think when I honestly assign certain moments of success to Nori, a lot of it boils back to a specific advisor relationship. And I don't know that there's one person, but interestingly enough, I started at a company called Alpha Sites that does expert network outreach. Basically, when a PE firm or consultancy is making a specific corporate decision, they want to speak with an expert in whatever that investment decision is or corporate change. And Alpha Sites finds that expert. And so as much as I was conducting that on behalf of my clients, I think it did get me in the mindset of like, find people that understand this way more than you do. Find the expert in that field and try and encourage them to help you. And what's so cool about entrepreneurship is I think anyone that's seen success typically has had a lot of people help them along the way. So it's like absolutely mind-blowing how willing people are to help you when asked. So anyways, I ended up recruiting advisors like Dave Heath from Bombas, Jack McHugh from Fabletics. We met a great young founder named Ben Smith. So really just like building this advisory network has been so helpful to myself and my co-founder, making small decisions and building the company along the way.
That's amazing. Super important. I have many advisors as well, and sometimes I'm like, am I overdoing it with the number of people that I have that I can like ask for advice on? But it's the perspective is invaluable. I mean, the types of questions that they ask and experiences that they can bring to the table, like to your point, it takes a village to
really does
help you build these things. So that's awesome to hear.
It doesn't. I just think it ends up saving you so much time too, because they've made the decisions that you're trying to sort through a million times over. And we were so lucky that like so many resources and partners and like agency partners were just handed to us as like, I've tried 4, try this.
Yeah,
you know,
like,
this is the best we've tried.
Yeah.
And it really helped us so much. I could never have done that on my own.
That's awesome. So tell us who you are.
So my name's Courtney Toll. I'm the co-founder of Nori, which is a clothing care brand. And our hero product is sort of this innovative take on a handheld steam iron called the Nori Press.
Amazing. And when did you found the company?
So we officially launched the company in May of 2021. So we're coming up on our 3rd birthday, but have sort of started from a direct-to-consumer standpoint and now fairly omni-channel.
Amazing. And so you talk about hero product. Do you have other products?
We do. So our greater category is clothing care, which is an interesting one because it's pretty fragmented. But our goal is to create sort of hardware and liquid products that are designed to increase the longevity of your wardrobe. So you love a shirt, but you've had it for 4 years and you want to give it away. How do you increase the longevity of that shirt and care for it on an ongoing basis? So the iron/steamer is our hero product, but we have a fabric shaver, we have a liquid ironing solution that will help deodorize your clothes and refresh them, and then a new hero product actually launching in April.
Amazing. That's awesome. What inspired you to start Nori?
So kind of a personal pain point. That company that I mentioned I worked for, first job out of college, would wake up wanting to make a strong first impression, look good at work, but lived in like the tiniest New York apartment, honestly still do, and just didn't own an ironing board. I hated the steamer that I had, and I couldn't afford dry cleaning, so I'd iron my clothes with a hair straightener, and I just thought like, this has got to be like one of the only markets that doesn't have an innovative player. So spent a lot of time in customer discovery and tried to create an iron that is totally inspired by consumer need. No ironing board required, really innovative features, meant to make it totally hassle-free.
That's amazing. So you saw a problem and you...
Simple as that, yeah. Sometimes I look back and I'm like, what was I doing? But I'm glad I did it.
I mean, it's interesting though. I feel like I've faced similar challenges of... One, ironing just feels complicated to me. It's like I still don't know exactly how to even do it.
Right.
And I'm scared of an iron. I feel like it's going to burn me. And then a steamer, I've burnt myself with a steamer before.
And they spit everywhere.
Oh my gosh, there's water all over the place. Your clothes are wet usually afterwards.
Exactly.
And then you're just frustrated with the whole situation.
Exactly. And you're like, should I just pay for the dry cleaning?
Yep.
But so Nori's iron spelled backwards actually. And it's meant to sort of be a new take on it.
I love that. That's awesome. Well, congratulations on almost 3 years.
So much.
That's so cool.
Thank you.
What is a day in the life for you? What does it look like?
So You can probably test this too. Like every day really is so different.
So different.
I think one thing that we're trying to be more mindful about specifically this year is, especially with a small team, like you can just become like as if you're playing a game of whack-a-mole. Like it's just like hitting the hottest need, like a fulfillment issue, product development, or ops or sales. And we're trying every single week to come up with like a larger focus. So for example, like this week, we love doing co-branded partnerships where we come out with like a specific edition of the Nori Press in partnership with another brand or talent. So this week, I'm really focused on trying to find new partners, how to optimize the kind of partnership structure based on past learnings. So we're really trying to be more mindful about like hitting one thing at a time and really putting our energy into that to see true results versus just being so reactive to the constant needs of a business.
Yeah. How do you plan your weeks?
So we try and do a team meeting every single morning at 10:30, which allows us to like get through our inbox in the morning and then start to talk about what we're going to do. But I would say like we like to spend the first 3 days on more outward-looking outreach. So new partners, new retailers, and then the second half of the week when people start to become, I don't want to say more lazy, but you know, they get distracted throughout the week. We're more internal focused. So like what are operation optimizations we can make, what do we need to be doing internally, and then it all starts over.
I love that. That's a cool structure. I haven't really heard of people breaking the week in half like that.
Honestly, do we stick to it? No, but well, that is the intent every week.
It's a rough guide.
Yep.
I like that. I think it's always interesting to hear about how people set their weeks up because I think there's sort of a notion that everyone just gets to the week and sees what happens. Yeah. And there is more intentionality that goes into it usually.
Exactly. Yeah. That's the hope at least.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially when you're trying to like run the show and grow something.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's awesome. And what would you say is the high and the low of your role currently?
I think the high is like truly seeing something tangible that you have built. And we have so much fun with like new product launches, new color launches, new partnerships, and new retailers because you're so in the weeds of like all that it takes to get something to market. But then when you actually see something you created, I think that's something so unique to entrepreneurship that you sometimes don't get in other jobs is like, whoa, I made that with a team. I think the lows are, there's just not always a ton in your control. And it can be frustrating to put a lot into things and sometimes feel like, you know, a retailer isn't responding or a supplier came up short. And I'm sure we let people down too. But, you know, I think it's just easy to get caught up in bad days when things don't go your way, especially when everything feels so personal because, you know, it's your company. I'm
sure. I always think that must be the hardest part of having a product-based business is just the number of pieces that need to be in order to get your product then into the customer's hands. It's simpler with services, right? It's like, here's your client, here's your service.
Deliver.
Like get it done. And there's unpredictability with that too.
Sure.
But the multi-step process and players involved from the product side, I'm sure is just crazy sometimes.
Sometimes it is crazy. Yeah. And I think, you know, with any supply chain that you're a consumer of, like things run at a delay. Right. So it is what it is. But I'm sure with services too, like there's the intricacies that end up being a hang up.
Yeah. Yeah. Things that you just can't control. That's part of the game.
Is what it is.
You're like, okay, I just have to let the game come to me a little bit, but it's hard to do that when you're a go-getter and like control maybe.
Perfectionist a little bit.
Did you, at 21, did you ever think you would be doing what you're doing now?
No, I didn't at all. I'm like very risk averse, honestly.
Really? That's surprising.
It is. I actually was an entrepreneurship minor, mainly to bolster my major.
Okay. What was your major?
I was a communications major, but I wanted like a little bit more of the businessy side. So I thought entrepreneurship would be a good add-on. But we like took a test to tell us the likelihood of being an entrepreneur, and mine was like a stark minority. So it's honestly shocking that I'm here. But I think, again, it just boils down to like what your idea is. I was really passionate about my idea, and the more time I spent on it while still in like the safe confines of my day job, I started to feel like there really was potential and scalable potential. And so I think like regardless of who you are, especially if you are risk averse, like maybe using that to your benefit of trying to like take actions to de-risk something, like raise money before you ever leave your job, or, you know, find a supplier before you ever leave your job, or whatever that might look like for you. That helped me a lot to actually move forward with it when I wasn't 100% comfortable going full force.
That's good advice.
Did you think you'd be an entrepreneur, or?
I always wanted to start a company. I did not think
I think that's so cool.
I did not think it was going to be a services business, though. And I was waiting for some idea, like your idea. Like I was waiting to be inspired by some problem I had. And I was like, I'm going to create this thing. And that's not how it worked out. But opportunities present themselves in weird ways. And it felt like when I started Indie, there was an opportunity to create something a little different in this space, in the marketing services space. And then to your point, it is constantly just balancing the risk and saying like, okay, what is the worst thing that can happen if I go for this?
Right.
Because if you tell yourself and convince yourself, all right, well, I have this to fall back on, or I have this contract in place for a year, so I know I'm good at least for a year. And then I have enough prospects to know I have a likelihood of getting something to hire someone. Yeah. It makes those leaps a little bit easier.
It
for
totally
sure.
is. It's like a constant practice and like hedging your bets.
Yeah, because it's not like we're just like, screw it, we're quitting our jobs and we're going to go do this thing and see what happens.
I envy people that are like that.
Me too.
But I'm not like that.
Yeah. But I think it's kind of fun now. It almost feels like, I mean, there's some sort of adrenaline tied to it, right?
Oh, there totally is.
You're like constantly weighing your options. And then when you hit it right, it's like, oh, that's awesome.
And we always talk about this like mindset of entrepreneurship, which I'm sure you probably feel too, of like, in the best way, it's never enough. Like you always have wanted X amount in revenue, hit it like on to the next, you know? Like I've always wanted this investor. They invest not enough. Like, you know?
Yeah.
And for better or for worse, I think that mindset like pushes you so much farther.
Yeah.
But probably also good to take a moment to, you know, be grateful for those things. But it's hard to not just always want the next thing for your business.
It is. It is. I was actually thinking about this today because we closed a client that I'm super excited about.
Congratulations.
Thank you. But we got the email and I was like, oh, awesome. I was excited. Yeah. But then I paused for a second. I'm like, I used to get like, oh my God, this was the best thing that's happened to me in all month, you know? And now I'm like, okay, great. You know, on to the next.
Literally,
basically.
What is my next partner?
And I'm like, okay, I need to stop. And to your point, celebrate the win. Like it's really exciting. But you do just get in. It's always going to the next level.
It's to the next thing. Yeah. And sometimes you stop and you're like, if I told myself, you know, where I am now, I'd be so excited.
Yeah.
But not in the moment.
Yeah. I get it. I can absolutely relate. What is the biggest thing you've learned about yourself through your entrepreneurial journey? I feel like one of the things that I've noticed in the process of building Indie is just how introspective the experience has been for me. So I'm curious what you feel like you've learned about you.
I feel like I'm more resilient than I probably thought I was. Like I said, I'm risk averse, so I'm kind of averse to change in many ways. But you can't be that way. No. And as much as like you said, like the wins, they come and you kind of move on to the next. Same with the losses. Like sometimes something doesn't go your way and you know, it can feel earth-shattering, but like there's no time in entrepreneurship to let that get you down. And I think like it's interesting how quickly now when things don't go our way, it's like, well, whatever, you know, on to the next. Yeah. And I am so happy that that is something that is fostered day in and day out because I think it really helps you in every aspect of life when things are always out of your control to use that sense of resiliency to your benefit. So I think I'm more resilient than I thought, and I think it's building with time.
I like that. No, I agree. It does just kind of put things into perspective of nothing. There are very few things that are going to be like the end of the world. Yeah. Otherwise, you keep moving, and that's kind of the point of entrepreneurship.
Exactly. Yeah. And the benefit of having such a busy day-to-day is like, can't focus on it. So on we go.
What would be your biggest piece of advice for someone who's looking to start like a product-based company?
I think it's kind of back to that idea of de-risking, like really spend the time thinking about what you're building. And one, make sure that it's a real need that you're solving for. And two, surround yourself with advisors that once you've identified that idea, what can allow you to move, 3x faster because of the experience that they have. There is nothing, I think, that replaces the role of an advisor in your life.
Yeah. Awesome. What would you say someone should not do who's looking to start a business?
That's a good question. Okay, so interestingly enough, I think be more choosy. I think when you first start something, any attention, you're my product's the best thing ever.
Yeah.
And certain opportunities will start to pop up fairly early on, and it can seem so exciting. You have to try everything. But try and be more choosy and really think about, does this drive revenue?
Mm-hmm.
And it's so easy, kind of back to my very first answer of sometimes making mistakes on investing in certain things that don't work. Often worth testing, but it can't hurt to ask yourself, does this drive the company from point A to point B? Or is this just a cool thing that we can post about, you know?
Yeah.
So I would just say be mindful about your early investments.
Yeah. That's smart. Yeah, I think I look back at our journey with Indie, and we took on some projects in the early days that we just took on because we're oh, great, a new project.
Totally.
And you're why did we do that?
Exactly.
That was not helpful.
We were
the team
out.
we were tortured by the situation. It didn't move the needle in the business.
Yeah.
But you have to go through some of those experiences to learn too, I think.
You really do. And that's the thing. It's all learning. And honestly, people gave me that advice too. And I'm ooh.
Oh, yeah. Because you're just so excited and you, again, want to move forward. So you're this feels like we could make this an opportunity.
Exactly.
Let's try.
I'm sure there's something to be gained there.
Yeah, for sure. Amazing. Well, let's do a quick round of trendy or tragic.
Ooh, love it.
So I'll throw something out and give me your initial reactions.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, Stanley mugs.
I think trendy.
Yeah.
I love mine.
You have one?
I'm not a huge water drinker, which was a resolution of mine, and I think it's helped.
Yeah?
Do you have one?
No.
Okay. I think you should get one.
I know. I'm still stuck in the Yeti age.
Okay, Yeti's one of our investors, so I should be drinking out of a Yeti.
I was going to say, I am a millennial, obviously. Not cool enough with the Stanley. Here's my issue with the Stanley. Do you bring it around New York City? Are you chugging along with that thing?
That is the hard thing. No, it's my home office friend.
Yeah.
I've seen people with the straw covers, but I haven't gone that far yet. So I don't bring it to the office. So I do think the Yeti is better in that case. Yeah. But for the day-to-day at home,
it's nice
I do love it.
Yeah. Because I feel if I was driving everywhere, it fits perfectly in the cup holder. You got the glug-a-lug there with you. It's a good setup. But yeah, maybe I should just try it at home. See how it goes.
Treat yourself. Why
not? People posting about their personal lives on LinkedIn.
Oh, I want to say trendy. Okay, I'd probably say tragic, just unless it somehow relates to their day today.
Yep.
But I do feel there's so many social media channels, and I do think what's cool about LinkedIn is that it is so different from the rest because it's such a resource for career networking. So if it's something that bleeds into business decisions or the change in what you're doing, 100%. But sometimes I do feel it's kind of unnecessary.
I agree.
Yeah.
I'm keep it somewhere else. That's why we have Instagram.
That's why you have the million
TikTok,
others. Yeah.
Update your Facebook status or whatever. But we don't need to have the novella of your
engagement story.
Yeah. It's too much. That's not why we're here.
It is so funny. Yeah. But I still give it a like because I'm okay.
I know. I mean, LinkedIn is just its own beast. It's you don't really want to be on there, but you kind of have to.
I know, and that's why I feel it should be limited to business things so you can be efficient with it.
Right. It's let's
you're not scrolling through the noise.
Yeah, we got to give people updates. This is where our customers are.
Exactly.
Or partners or whatever it may be. Yeah, I agree with you.
That's so funny.
Unhinged marketing. Have you heard about this trend?
I don't know. Oh, is this just where you say wild things, sort of?
Yeah.
Okay, surprisingly trendy. I do feel maybe it's not something we have tried, but I have seen it like popped up a ton where people are just like saying wild things. I think a lot of people are playing on like sexualizing products, which, you know, for better or for worse, like it's interesting. Ours honestly kind of has an interesting shape to it, so it could go that direction. But I'd say trendy because I do think it's like up and coming. To be fair, we haven't tested it much.
Yeah. No, I think it's good for brands to figure out, to have a voice and then commit to it, right? Like, and if your brand is positioned to have fun and be a little crazy,
so true.
Go for it.
If it's native to your brand voice, and like dough, for example, do you know the cookie dough brand?
Yes.
They're very tongue-in-cheek, and they say very tongue-in-cheek things, but it's so on brand for them. Whereas I think like if certain brands were to do it, it would feel like so, you know, not native to that brand voice.
I agree.
So probably depends on who you are.
Yeah. I was listening to a podcast and they were talking about how Tiffany's has like really overreached on their social, and they're doing like all these memes and trying to be like really sassy and funny. And it's like, Tiffany is what? Like, this is not the right fit.
I've heard that. I actually haven't looked, but I was reading an article that the IRS has also like gone a little too far in that direction, which I'm like, oh, I don't know that you can like be arresting people and then making those jokes.
No, I feel like that's honestly not what I want to hear.
Taxes.
Literally. It's like, we already have a weird relationship. Let's not continue this.
Exactly.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. This has been super fun. Tell people where they can find you and Nori.
So you can find Nori on our website at www.nori.co. We're also available on Bloomingdale's, Williams-Sonoma, Crate & Barrel, The Container Store, fun places like that.
Awesome. And they can find you on LinkedIn.
On LinkedIn, nothing about my personal life. You're never going to know. And then also our socials are at Meet Nori on both TikTok and Instagram.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so you guys can find us on Instagram at namedrop.pod, and I'm at Malbakes. Thanks so much.